Hi, this is Trader Genius, and I'm Jess, and today we're going to talk about Fisker and a stock trade on the daily time frame. Here's the chart for Fisker. Let's go ahead and pop it out. Up here it says daily. We got the prices down here on the left, and across the bottom you see the green and red candles, and the numbers correspond with the dates of the month that are a little hidden behind the candles, but they are right here. So this is currently the previous day for Fisker. So that would be on March 1st is what this particular candle is looking at. Each one of these candles represent one day. I had gotten into Fisker because it was breaking out to an all-time high. I had trigger and I had K-band, and I'll show you where that is. When I turn on trigger, it's a momentum indicator. So red means momentum in the downward direction. Green means upward momentum. So Fisker broken out to an all-time high right here on this candle on February 16th. You can see the all-time high on our investor chart. And that was happening in this big candle right here, but it was starting right here. So there has been some really nice growth coming up, starting somewhere around $10 or so, and it moved up quite nicely to 20, but there's been decent profit taking in the process. So something to keep in mind when we're talking about our decisions to buy and sell is holding different perspectives. So an overall market view, kind of a zoomed out view of the particular stock, or if the stock's in a particular sector, and then that stock as well too. And this will come into play with some of the decision making based on a daily time frame. And it's more just an awareness. So let's turn off the investor chart and go back to our daily chart. So I decided to get into Fisker here, not only because it was all-time high and that it had momentum, but also it had some power. So the blue is blue K-band, power in the upwards direction, yellow K-band, power in the downwards direction. So at that time, it wasn't a red candle. At the end of the day, it did turn into a red candle, but not when I had gotten in there. So I had power, I had momentum, and I had an all-time high. Fisker has also been getting a lot of attention from the EV sector. So I know that the EV sector, among other areas, are of particular interest to people, especially at the beginning of the year and starting a new decade, at the early part of a new decade. So I went ahead and entered into Fisker there on February 16th, and it turned. And I was okay with the turn for a couple different reasons. And let me back up real quick to why there was also the trade factors of the trade that brought me into it was the volume genius. Look at this volume spike. This volume spike is talking about exceptional volume. So Fisker had really exceptional volume. I saw this candle, waited for the all-time high breakout, and then entered, along with the other factors that I had discussed. So Fisker ended up having a bit of a sell-off, which is somewhat to be expected. We see these big jumps and you see a little bit of sell-off. You see a decent green candle and a little bit of a sell-off there as well too, like here as well. So past behavior, it's still relatively in line with that past behavior, and it found some support at $18. Now at this point, there was a head fake. This price shot up to the top of that tail and then sucked back down. That head fake happened, and it actually turned and went into a downturn. Now, this isn't just Fisker in a bubble. Fisker is also a part of a larger market. So what's going on in the larger market landscape that also might be having an impact on Fisker? Well, let's look at the short-term market chart. And this is looking at over 7,000 stocks, and it provides a line chart with an evaluation of risk, looking at momentum, green and red, as well as resistance and support lines. And then there's also trend lines. Well, you can't ever time it perfect. And I happened to get into Fisker right when the trigger turned red. So it went from momentum on a daily perspective, looking at 7,000 stocks, from an upwards direction to a downwards direction. So this is something to keep in mind when trading, understanding the impacts of these moments in here and having tools that allow you to show it or allow you to see it. So I'm in Fisker. Overall, the market has been choppy, a little cyclical to say the least. And there's also been a lot of overnight trading. So for instance, this closed and then gapped all the way up here and opened here. The opposite scenario happened right here as well too. It closed down on this overall day for the candle, but overnight it then gapped down and opened even lower. So there it goes. It's going down and it finds support at, roughly the $16 mark. When we look to the left, we can see that this whole area is an area of potential support, but proven resistance. A lot of these candle tails are being pushed back down, and then there's a downturn. It goes up, and then there's a downturn, and etc. Another example, up and a downturn. So resistance can become a level of support, possibly, and it proved to be so with a nice little volume spike here. And then it shoots up on the 24th with a large overnight gap and goes up to roughly a high of just under $24. I sold part of my shares during this time. This is clearly the start of a new trend, but it's also a pretty big range. And we've seen this behavior of increased buying, the bulls winning out, and then some selling. And we see that repeated. So that did end up happening. And so on the 25th in the morning, when I saw this, I went ahead and sold some of my shares with Fisker. I still had green K-band, green trigger, blue K-band, and the volume genius, and a pretty decent amount of volume there. Then the 26th happened and it just shot up, $22 to $28 plus. And with that high of a range in the current market conditions, let's take a look again at the overall market chart. On the 25th, the market overall was taking a bigger bit of a downturn. It had broke through these established areas and kind of pushed lower. So at the end of the day, to manage risk and following a process, you have to ask yourself, when is enough enough? And when you see something like this large candle, stocks go up and stocks go down. Fisker's repeated itself over and over for upward momentum, especially when there's significant upward momentum relative to the recent past, that then there is a downturn within that market. So also we have a gap down that morning, and I went ahead and sold the rest of my shares that I was trading with Fisker on a daily time frame. At the end of the day, having logic-based rules that allow you to develop a system to create consistent results really helps during these times, especially when you don't have continuity with the market. Also, these behavior-driven tools such as these allow you to really get an idea of what is going on based on the actual behavior and not allowing prediction to rule the day.